guys, it's M4J here and welcome back to the M4J network here on OpenTTD. Quick disclaimer before the video gets started properly, there may be some buffering issues during the video. Unfortunately, I had the dreaded media encoder overload again whilst I was recording. It might not be too prominent, no, because I've technically sped up this footage to ×3, I believe. So maybe it's an issue, maybe it's not. I don't actually know because I've not watched it back yet. But just a little warning in advance so that there isn't loads of comments going, oh my god, your video's buffered, when, I've already told you. But then again, this is YouTube, so there's always going to be someone commenting that the video's buffering, even though I've already explained it 20 million times as to why that might be. Right, that was a bit of a narky start, wasn't it? Let's get into the actual video. Welcome to Laningway Industrial Estate. This has been around pretty much since the Great Eastern Mainline was built, actually, as far as Henning Hall Junction. And now, as you can see, it is gone. Or is it? Because basically, I am rebuilding Laningway Industrial Estate in today's episode. I'm turning it into new Laningway Industrial Estate. I'm very creative with my names, as you can tell. The reason I wanted to do this was, one of the things I'd noticed a lot here and at Sindwood as well was trains are constantly queuing to get into the platforms, particularly because the platforms themselves are quite limiting in what cargo is allowed. And Sindwood is a slightly bigger issue there because Sindwood has that doesn't make sense, has more cargo types accepted than Laningway. But I took this as a very, very good opportunity to rebuild Laningway and add in a couple of extra features that we didn't have before. And I'm quite happy with the outcome. Again, it's going back to me trying to build things to look a little prettier as well as being more functional. And I like to think this is a good way of linking two of the core main lines in this section of the network as well to each other. Only for freight trains, mind. Passenger trains will not go through here. But basically, this is where the network central line and the Guard City Great Eastern Mainline meet. And technically, it's not the Guard City Great Eastern Mainline, it's just the Great Eastern Mainline. Guard City Great Eastern is the name of the franchise, not the route, which I think I've had to explain before. That might mess up some of the maps that have been made, but hopefully not. But yeah, this is where the two lines meet now, technically, because you've got the network central that crosses over the top of the Great Eastern just before Laningway. You can just see the Great Eastern Mainline there in the top of your screen. And then you've got the Great Eastern Mainline that crosses past Laningway there, and then you've got the network central that crosses up on the west side. I don't know what's wrong with me today. I woke up not long ago. I've had a toothache, eye ache and neck ache for the last 2 days as well, so maybe that's finally taken its toll on me. But yeah, I'm going to try and get my words out. I'm going to try and get this video done, then I can sit back and relax, because this is the last video I needed to do for the week. Some of you might be wondering, why have I decided to rebuild Laningway? I've kind of explained it with the whole Sindwood scenario as well, but basically I wanted something that was quick and simple to do. That being said, this video took me over an hour to record, but I'd like to think majority of this I did right on the first try. I did have to go back and change some of the signalling, and I did have to go back and change some other little areas like adding waypoints in and stuff like that, because I forgot to do that first time around. I also had to go and redo one of the freight trains, in fact the freight train that uses this terminal at the moment, the one that runs between Sindwood and Laningway via Guard City South. And yeah, it's just, I don't know what happened to that one. It seemed to just, every train was in the depot constantly and I couldn't work out why. And I tried to clear the time and re-automate it, and it just wiped out pretty much everything. And when I say it wiped out pretty much everything, I mean, I clicked on the times, did control clear time, and it cleared all the wait times as well. So I ended up just wiping out the entire schedule and starting again from scratch. I think it did the job. So, I mean, from my tests that I've been doing just now, it seems to have worked. So fingers crossed that is indeed the case. But yeah, the reason that I wanted to redo all of this, or at least most of this, was Sindwood and Laningway are quite quiet at the moment. They're not that heavily used. But the plan is to increase their usage in the not too distant future. Laningway, especially because of its location on the map, it's quite central. It's not the most central, it's probably northern central, if that makes sense. Denston is probably central, which is why it's the hub for cross-region and cross-country services, whereas Laningway is kind of one of the main logistical hubs for freight in the centre of the map. It's not the main one, there will be other ones too, but it's one of them. So I kind of wanted to rebuild it anyway. Then I realised how close the Network Central mainline actually runs to Laningway as well. And again, it's one of these things where the map seems massive and it also seems tiny. So those of you who missed it, on Tuesday I ran the premiere for the first route overview, service overview, route overview. Pretty sure it's called the route overview. Hang on, I've got the thing open right in front of me here. Yeah, route overviews. I ran the first one of those. It was very successful, by the way. Thank you to all of those who came along and watched it. But part of that made me realise just how big the network is at times. Like the journey time between Renston and Laningway is quite big. The journey time between Henning Hall and Drenninghead is also far bigger than I thought it was. So there's me in the chat saying this is the longest continuous running journey currently on the network between Renston and Laningway, and I don't think it actually is. I think there is a longer one, which is between Henning Hall and Drenninghead. Anyway, in many respects there, the network is big, but as someone pointed out in the comments, the trains do run quite slow, and therefore journey times seem a little bit longer. For those of you that want to know, it's realism. You know, not everyone wants realism with OpenTTD, that's absolutely fine, but also don't criticise me for choosing to play realistically, because to describe a train as painfully slow, I think, is treading a little too close to the line. So don't call it painfully slow, just say slow. That's a much better way of saying it. But yeah, the network is massive and it's also tiny, and I hadn't realised how close Network Central actually was to Laningway Industrial Estate. I knew it ran over the Great Eastern Mainline, but I didn't know that it ran right near Laningway. So it seemed like a logical thing to just rebuild this terminal and actually have a pair of lines that connect up with the Network Central line as well. So now that trains that come in from the south, particularly freight trains that run through Denston, they no longer have to go all the way up to Henning Hall and then back along the Great Eastern Mainline. They can now technically take a shortcut through Bathurst Street and up the Network Central line. I don't know whether that would actually be a shortcut or not. Maybe the journeys would be the same, but it gives a little bit of extra flexibility. Plus, freight trains that are actually coming up through the Network Central from Tonway and Funston can also now go through Bathurst Street onto the Network Central mainline proper, and then diverge off into Laningway here. And as I said, it's a nice little logistic route for freight trains between the Great Eastern and Network Central main lines. Trains don't necessarily have to stop at Laningway, they can just go through the bypass lines, but it's still nice to have that as an option, that trains can stop here as well if necessary. And to go along the lines of, you know, Guard City North is the raw freight hub, and Guard City South is the manufactured freight hub. This one's more of a manufactured. Obviously it does accept some raw goods. There is a factory here that accepts wood. There's also one that accepts clay and coal, and I think sand. But the majority of this is manufactured. It's mostly goods, metal and manufacturing supplies. So it ties in very, very nicely again with the narrative we've got of mostly the trains that will be stopping here will be flatbeds. I don't know why I said narrative. That's not really the right word for it. It's kind of the logistics that we've got here is it's mostly going to be flatbeds. And that's why every single platform currently does not have a cargo limiter on it. It just has, if you come in from one side, you have to leave in the other side, so that trains have to loop round. They don't just reverse in the platforms. And I like how this is looking. I think it's working as intended pretty much. Trains are coming in, they're going around the loop properly, they're going through the bypass lines, and then they're exiting again. Obviously I haven't flooded the terminal yet, so there is an opportunity perhaps that trains could get clogged up with the way that I've done this, so I might have to have one or two platforms be one way only, which I'm not too bothered about. That's not going to be an issue to do at all. But besides all of that, I'm very, very happy with how this is looking. I think the entrance and exits here as well are also looking good. I have electrified the entries and exits and the platforms on the Network Central side, and I mean all the platforms have been electrified, but the entry and exit on the Network Central side, I'm not sure if we will ever have electrified locos using this hub, in which case I might de-electrify the lines again. The reason I electrified it is because the network central is electrified, but then not too far south of here is where it converts from overhead to third rail anyway, and I don't think there are any freight locos that can do that. Although saying that, I think the Class 92s can, but I don't know if we have any 92s in the set. I don't think we do. There may be plans to add them. I know that there have been plans announced to, if, well, the direct quote was if it runs on UK metal, it will be in the set, which is quite a promise to deliver. But if it can be made possible, then fair enough. Speaking of, I'm actually trying to work myself on bringing the 313s to the set, which basically, if I succeed, it's not through my own work, it'll be through the help of others. But, you know, for now at least, I'd like to take some of the credit. I'm going to try and do it. Reason being is I think the network central would benefit more from having 313s operate on it, make it look like a proper commuter route. And also the plan then would be to have some of the services that currently terminate at Bathurst Street actually extend further down to Tarnway and Funston, and maybe even beyond. If I could get a train from GSB all the way out to something like Munfingford Paragon, or at a push, maybe Drentbourne as well. I'm trying to think where the lines go. Actually, Drentbourne might be a bit of a push. And they won't go all the way down as far south as Plenborough or anything like that. That's a bit ridiculous, but to get it as far south as possible would be nice. And we'll see if that is actually doable or not. But yeah, time to talk about something a little unusual. Yeah, it's kind of unusual. If you're used to it, then it's not unusual at all. But if you're not used to it, like I am, it's kind of unusual. American freight operations. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is I've recently started looking at other Reddit communities. Funny enough, on Reddit. And one of the ones I was looking at recently was High Speed Rail. And it's mainly geared towards American people, but it does welcome input from, you know, Europe and Asia as well, which I think is great. But it's mainly people in America talking about American infrastructure, which I'm actually starting to find more interesting now. I kind of look down a little bit at American infrastructure, I have to admit, because I still feel it's a little bit archaic at times. However, I do see the merit to some of it now. But one of the things I did find interesting is the fact that someone asked the question of how feasible would it be to convert existing rail infrastructure in the USA to high speed. And it's something that doesn't happen too often. Mainland Europe, they're starting to do it a little bit more. They're upgrading some lines. But majority of the time, if they want high speed, they just build a new line. For example, High Speed 1, High Speed 2 in the UK. Also the LGV Nord, the LGV Sud-Est, the LGV Picardy. Is that how you say it? Picardy? I don't want to say that wrong myself, but I've probably said it wrong every single time I try to pronounce it there. And there are others. In Italy and Germany, actually, there's a lot of main lines going up at the moment. But Italy, Switzerland, I think, are starting to get in on the act now. And then other countries around Europe as well. Spain have a very, very good high-speed network. In fact, I think Spain have the largest high-speed network in Europe, thinking about it, in terms of routes. They do hold the record for something. I can't remember what it is now. It might not be the largest, thinking about it, because maybe it is. I don't know. Either way, the question was asked on Reddit, and the answer was no, not really would it be feasible, but only really because the railways aren't owned by Amtrak, and they're not owned by the states or the counties that they operate in. They're actually owned by freight operators. So you've got things like CSX and BNSF and Norfolk and Suffolk, I think, are the other big player. And there are other operators, I'm sure. I can't remember their names right now, but someone will tell me. Someone always tells me. And they own the lines. So for Amtrak, especially, to use some of these lines, they have to pay premiums to the freight companies. And it also means that you can't really upgrade it for passenger use, because why would a freight company sanction that when it's their trains that technically have priority? The reason I found that interesting is because here in the UK, freight trains are kind of the afterthought. Passenger trains come first, and freight trains might be dumped in a siding to allow a high-speed express to go through, or even a commuter train to go through, to be fair. That's why freight operations here in the UK are quite slow, because it can take a day, really, for a train to traverse the network, because it's always being pulled aside for a higher priority train to be let through. I don't particularly have a problem with that. I think passengers do earn more revenue, and therefore it should make sense that they're given priority. But the fact that it's the opposite in the USA, passenger trains are kind of the afterthought and freight trains take prominence. I just found that really interesting. I don't think it's a bad thing by any stretch. I think it's just unusual compared to what I'm used to. Maybe unusual is not the not the right word either. Maybe it's just it's different to what I'm used to. Let's put it that way. It's different. But I kind of wanted to hear what you guys think about it as well. Do you think it's good that that's how it's done, or do you think it's something that should perhaps be thought about a little bit more? I think in terms of upgrading for the 21st century, it's something that should be thought about a little bit more, and something that's reviewed in the future, should we say? Because I think right now it's making it difficult for companies to make rail an attractive prospect. A company that is doing it the right way is Brightline down in Florida, and I think they are they still extending to California, or sorry, expanding to California? They're not building a line between Florida and California. That's a bit ridiculous. But I think they're having operations start soon in California as well. But their main line at the moment is linking, I believe, Tampa to Orlando in Florida, and it's a higher speed line, 125 mile per hour diesel hauled running. So it's not breaking the sound barrier or anything like that, but compared to what USA currently has, they're basically going supernova. I think, or supersonic would probably be a better word there. I think it's good. I like Brightline. I think what they're doing is an attractive way to get people interested in rail again. But yeah, I like Brightline. I think Brightline will succeed. But I know that some parts of Brightline are not on dedicated tracks, and some of Brightline is on dedicated tracks. So I think it operates at slower speeds on the non-dedicated sections, and then at higher speeds on the dedicated sections. But I think they're connecting, is it Orlando Airport as well, and that's going to be a brand new station that's built. They're doing things right, and I know at one point they had Virgin Trains on board, but I believe that's no longer the case. Not quite sure what happened there. Hopefully nothing bad. But yeah, I again just want to hear your opinions on it, really. What do you guys think? Do you think America should be looking to do more operations like Brightline, or do you think things should be left as they are? I know where I stand on the subject, but I do want to hear what you guys think as well. Drop some comments in the comment section down below, or head over to Discord and Reddit and join in the conversations there. And yeah, let me know, especially if you're from the western side of the pond. Do let me know, because it's all well and good me sitting here judging things from a distance, but I'd quite like to hear what you guys think, sort of being in the centre of the action as well. Maybe I've missed the point slightly, maybe there's other things that I've not factored in, but yeah, let me know. Going back to the subject of the video again then. So we've connected the network central here via this brand new junction. Waypoints have been added, and as you can see I'm doing the signals now for the speed limits. This is going to be a game changer, not just for freight operations, this junction, but also for passenger operations. Because up until now, I decided against building a junction just north of Bathurst Street, and figured that trains could cross over at Triangle Point. But actually this junction makes a lot of sense now, because if there's a train that uses the, for example, cross country, when that starts running, there might be a train that comes from Denston up through Bathurst Street from the Denston branch of the Great Eastern Mainline, and now they can cross straight over to the fast line here, and they don't have to be held up by slower trains. They can run fast up to Triangle Point and beyond, which is something, again, I hadn't really considered. And one thing I might end up doing, again, if the 313s, if I find a way to get them into the game, which I will do, it's just a case of time and getting help from the right people, which I think I lean too much on them sometimes. I do need to learn how to do some of these things myself, but it is very nice and very supportive of them to be offering their assistance as well, so I am very grateful. It's nothing, I'm not being ungrateful or anything like that, but coding is something I've always wanted to learn to do, and I think it's just the way my mind works. I'm still mechanically inclined right now. I need to switch over to the dark side of the Force, otherwise known as the electronic side, and learn how to do coding and build things without actually seeing them, which is how I always look at coding, which can in many ways make it more interesting, but it can also make it more challenging. But yeah, if I do get that working, one of the things I would like to do is a commuter train between Guard City St Bartholomew and Denston Carnegie, using the third rail line from Bathurst Street down to Denston, and that junction might allow me to do that. It might not end up being with the 313s, it might end up being with the 319s. But the way I kind of looked at the Network Central franchise was to have 313s operate the slower services that switch voltage, and then have the 319s operate the faster services, because 313s, their speed limit max operating speed is 75 miles per hour, whereas the 319s, their max speed is 100 miles per hour. So in terms of having trains operating on the fast line, it made more sense to have it be the 319s rather than the 313s. But again, we will see how well that works out, because it might not work out at all. In terms of the 313s, going back to that quickly, the sprites have been drawn. They were not drawn by me. They were drawn by, again, I'm going to say the name wrong, but Gwyd. Actually, I think it is. I'm trying to remember, because Wales in Welsh is Cymru, but it's spelled Cymru. So I believe it would be Gwyd or Gwyd. Anyway, apologies if I've butchered your name, but he's drawn all the sprites, and it's just a case of me writing the code for them. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and use existing code from other trains, and then just edit them to make it work with the 313s. Which I mean, I call it cheating, but it's not really cheating, is it? It's just being efficient, I suppose, because it's making the code work for other. Anyway, that's not why. I'm not here to pat myself on the back. Hopefully, it'll be added soon. The M4J network version of BR trains will also be available soon. There was a lot of projects that were kind of half finished and are starting to be finished now. Things like the Network Central, for example, and even things like the freight. The way the freight was working, I wasn't really that happy with it. Plus the fact that the company was losing an absolute ton of money. In fact, I can open that quickly. Oops. Because one of the things I don't particularly want to do is send someone a save file or have them download it from my website and then just spend the rest of their lives trying to make it profitable. So right now the company is losing about £700 million per year, but we're spending at least 500 million on new trains every year. So really it's a 200 million loss. Income from trains, it varies a lot. I've got 30 million profit, 90 million profit, and 53 million. Or not profit, I should say, but income. 30 million, 90 million, and 53 million. So it does fluctuate a lot. Bearing in mind that with the realism timing, a year isn't a year, if that makes sense. So a year in the game sense is probably, I think it's just over a day in terms of real life. Actually, that doesn't sound right at all. I don't know. But yeah, if you're one of these people who likes to do yearly profits and that and the such, it's not really going to work out for you, because how long's a year in this game? It's not even a day. So that wouldn't really work. So you might have to come up with other ways to measure your profit and measure your loss. If that's your thing. I don't personally understand it. I don't know why people would do that, but anyway. That's by the by. I can't really critique when I'm doing other things that other people don't do, so to each their own. Everyone has their different tastes, whatever floats your boat. All the other cliches that don't really mean anything. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, so now that the company's a little bit more profitable, once I add more freight trains in and a few more passenger trains, once the Northern franchise is truly up and running as well, and also once the actually, going back to North-Western very quickly, I've added another service since last week's episode, which is an all-stopper between Sunnington and Beffingway. Literally stops at every station along the North Valleys line. Very, very slow, but doesn't seem to hold up anything else. It basically runs, I think, a minute behind the express train to begin with, so that you know, once the express train is shot off into the distance, the slower one should be able to clear the line before the next express train comes through. But yeah, once there's a few more trains out on the network, then I will make the map and the new GRF available for download. But for now, I'm kind of keeping it under wraps while a few more trains get added and while a few more sprites converted to M4J rail livery as well. But yeah, that pretty much does it for this episode, guys. As I said, it was a quick build in terms of I literally made it up as I went along. There wasn't too much planning went into this. I knew I wanted to rebuild Laningway, but I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. So I'm very happy with the result, actually. I think it looks awesome. I've got it open on my my game screen as well, and it just looks really neat and tidy. A massive improvement, and we've basically doubled the amount of platforms as well, which is also awesome. But yeah, let me know your feedback down in the comments section below, and also what you'd like to see in the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and of course if you enjoyed the series so far. Drop those comments down below, as I've already said. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Let me try that sentence again. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys for your continued support. And until next time, I will see you soon.